Joining me now is Roya Hakakian, author of Journey from the Land of No, a girl held caught in revolutionary Iran. It's the compelling memoir about coming of age as a Jewish teenager in Iran at the time of the Iranian Revolution. Roya, welcome. Very good to have you here.
Delighted to be here.
So, your book is wonderful. I loved it. Now, tell me what it was like to grow up at that time when the Shah was falling and the Ayatollah had not yet arrived.
I've always looked back at it as the most wonderful, the most unforgettable period of my life. I think primarily because it was in that age that I, as a teenager, was searching, like all teenagers, for who it is that I wanted to become and what it is that I really believed in, separate from my family, and you know, what were my own convictions. And it was exactly then that I was introduced to this huge ideal that life can be better and that all of us as Iranians need to come together for a bigger aspiration, for something beyond us as individual beings.
Now, what did you expect to happen when the Ayatollah came back? Because you know, there's a wonderful scene in your book where you're listening to the Ayatollah, who at that time is in exile still in Paris, and he's telling you all these passionate things about what he's going to do, and he tells you all that you should go up onto the roof of your houses at 9 o'clock at night and shout, Allah Akbar, God is great. I mean, it's fascinating. What did you expect to happen when he came back?
Well, going by everything that he had said in 1977, in 1978, right prior to the revolution, we expected all good things to come because, first of all, he had said that he had no, he didn't have his eyes on becoming, on power. In other words, he just expected to come back to Iran, and once prisoners were free and freedom of speech had been restored and people had become, you know, were living in a democracy, he would just go to Qom, which is the Vatican of Iran, and become a seminarian and just sort of go back to a life of studying the Quran all over again.
Sort of like Sistani, for instance, in Iraq.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, he had never, prior to the revolution, said that he wanted to become a political leader. So it seemed like we had at last arrived at this humble, unselfish political leader who just wanted to restore freedoms to Iran and thereafter wanted to leave matters in the hands of the pros, you know.
So now, tell me what it was like. I mean, you describe it in your book very well, that gradual feeling that he wasn't going to be what he promised.
I think the very first thing that happened that should have alarmed us all, and I think it alarmed women more than any other social class in Iran, was the fact that about 3 weeks after the revolution, on the occasion of March 8th, International Women's Day, he announced that women should embrace the veil again and embrace the idea of the Islamic dress code, something that Iran had come out of about 50 years earlier.
How old were you at that time?
13.
13. And what was it like for you to be told you suddenly had to wear the veil?
Well, I was listening to all the arguments that I was hearing. On one hand, Kate Millett, the American feminist, had come to Iran, and she, along with Iranian feminists, were marching on the streets protesting against this new declaration. And I remember hearing two arguments. One was the argument that the feminists were making, that, you know, the revolution was also for women to reach equal rights. But the other argument was, can't women put their own demands and needs aside because we have a bigger, the revolution was about bigger things than just, you know, whether they put on the scarf or not. I think that what happened was that the opposition and the regime itself at the time came together to say that this whole veil thing wasn't all that important an issue, and if women were really dedicated to the idea of a better Iran, they should put it on for a while and go with it.
So in a sense you felt you were tricked into it, really?
Yes, it seemed that if we were good Iranians, we should make this small sacrifice and put it on for a while.
But what's really vivid about your book, I think, is that, you know, we read all these things in the newspapers, but we don't know what it's like to be a young girl as you were in Iran. I mean, there's a wonderful scene when you come back from school and you find that your father has basically taken apart your room. Tell me about that.
There was a moment when I came home and my father and mother were trying to keep me away from my bedroom. and at the end I smell something burning and find my way to the balcony of my bedroom and see that in a heap of fire all of my diaries and writings, and which at the time I thought were great pieces of literature, are burning, along with all the books that I had loved and read for so many years.
That's just inconceivable for an American teenager to even grasp what that would feel like. Was that for you a seminal moment that made you feel I have to leave?
Unfortunately, it wasn't, because worse things had happened to other peers of mine. I mean, I had also watched other classmates or friends be hauled away and not come back. I mean, in some ways, it was a relief to find that it was my own father who was doing this to me, as opposed to my being stopped by the guards on the streets and, you know, be questioned by them, which actually happened systematically in Iran at that time in the early 80s. So as upsetting as it was better because it was my own family doing it to me, as opposed to the strangers on the streets who were always doing it to kids my age. And
now, what do you hear now from your friends and family that you've left behind in Iran? What do they say is it like for women now?
I think aside from what is going on with respect to opposition leaders and political party leaders in Iran, women as a social class are the biggest thorn in the side of this regime. That whether we, you know, the reformists accomplish whatever it is that they have set out to accomplish, women are consistently out there in the ways that they live, being a reminder to this regime that they have citizens who are discontented with the status quo in Iran. I mean, look at pictures that are coming out of Iran. You see women whose scarves are here, and you know, this is entirely against what they had wished to happen. They had wished that, you know, over the years women would really embrace the idea of the scarf and the veil and bring it forward and, you know, really just
but you
wrap
see
their faces in it.
The wonderful sign of it slipping backwards. I mean, in many ways, women are the great hope for democracy in the Middle East.
Absolutely.
The great hope.
I'm convinced.
Thank you so much, Roya. I love the book, and I'm glad you came. And we'll be back with more right after this. Up next, behind the scenes at Ocean's 12, veteran Hollywood hitmeister Jerry Weintraub.
You can have lunch with Julia Roberts and Catherine Zeta.